Who do we have to sit for alternatives? And so we'll sit Representative Mary Hecken Phillips for, who's not here? Peter Schmidt. Carol's here, Bob's here, Jackie's here, Eric's here. Great. And that's everybody, right? So we don't miss, but we have a quorum. Next up, entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written and presented. Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as written and presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The minutes are adopted. Moving on to the consent calendar. And entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. It's been moved by Representative Lake, seconded by Representative Leon. Is there any further discussion, or would anybody like to take anything off the consent calendar? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent calendar as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The consent calendar is adopted. Moving on to the regular calendar. We have 3 items. The first item up is Health and Human Services, I believe.
This is 2025-158. It is on laboratory services that are covered under Medicaid. And I have no substantive comments. However, the rules were expired in January 24th of 2024. So the committee may have questions on the expiration.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee on, so that obviously these are another set of rules that came in front of us that have expired. I guess the obvious question is, has any fees been collected, any fines been imposed?
Good morning, Allison Radney, Administrator for the Administrative Rules Unit, sorry, of the Department of Health and Human Services. There are no fees and fines associated with this rule. This is a service that is in our state plan that we are required to reimburse on. So they just continue kind of as business as usual, reimbursing the providers on this.
Any other discussions from the committee? I entertain a motion. Representative McGuire.
I'm uncertain why we need the rule at all under those circumstances.
The rule kind of outlines all the details that the providers need about like how they go about billing, and it is what our administrative appeals unit uses if there's an appeal. I'm sorry, my name is Sarah Morris. I'm a policy analyst with the Division of Medicaid Services.
Follow up. So in the year and a half since it expired, what did you do?
There were no appeals that I'm aware of in that time, so they didn't need that to back them up, but we continued reimbursing providers as usual, and as outlined in our billing manual that providers use.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Representative, seconded by Representative Grote. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those, I'm sorry, did I say all in favor? All opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Sorry, I lost track of myself. Next up is, thank you very much, ladies. Next up is Natural Cultural Resources, number 169.
Yeah, so these rules are on the operation of wood processing mills and wood concentration yards. They also include forestry health and forest fire and administrative fines. So these rules were on consent because we don't have any substantive comments on there, but we do believe that there were some concerns raised, so we pulled that off of consent.
Well, I asked, let Representative Leon pull it from consent, explain why she pulled it from consent, and then you guys can respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. I apologize for pulling it off of consent. It was a crazier summer than I had expected. My concern is because the statute on permissible fires is very limited. In RSA 227L17, it says, as used in this paragraph, a camp or cooking fire shall be a small fire suitable for cooking purposes used in connection with camp, picnic, or lunch purposes, and does not include the burning of household rubbish or large amounts of brush or other flammable material. And the rulemaking authority in RSA 227G4(9) says, gives the authority for rulemaking for the preparation and issuance of burning permits and the kindling of camp or cooking fires pursuant to the statute that I just referenced part of. In the rules to be adopted, all burning is treated with the same restriction on brush and wood diameter set for camp and cooking fires. This can be found on page 17 of the rules, which is 18 of the packet, in the definition of permissible materials in section O, page 18 of the rules, 19 of the packet, and A4 of the category 1, 2, and 3 fire permits, and the following page on the category 4 fire permits. I contend that the 5-inch wood diameter is arbitrary and not supported by the statute. The rate of consumption of wood in a fire is influenced by more by other factors not included in the rules, like moisture content and wood species, than in the diameter of the wood. A well-dried stump of a small tree exceeds the 5-inch diameter in the rules, but can be quickly consumed in a small fire pit. Logs from standing dead timber or fallen wood of a diameter greater than 5 inches can be consumed quickly as well, which is particularly true for pine, and which is dying at a great rate, especially with all the bittersweet choking out these trees. The existing statute and rules regarding the need to properly extinguish a fire and establishing liability for damage from a fire deal with the same externalities that I assume are the driving force behind the 5-inch diameter limit, namely the duration of the fire and the requirement to attend such a fire until it's fully extinguished. I ask that the phrase "no greater than 5 inches in diameter" be struck from all the sections above. If that's not okay, I do have another way to look at it, just pulling it out of the category and 3 and 4 fires, especially as the category 4 fire is how you deal with burning materials that need to be disposed of outside of the other process. And category 3 is not defined as a camp or cooking fire. So that's what my concern is. Particularly, we have so much standing dead wood. We have so much left in our forests. If we're not able to manage the disposal of that, either through chipping or through burning it in a controlled manner, we subject ourselves to spreading wildfires like they have in California, where they don't manage their forests. And that's why I think that it's important that responsible burning of wood larger than 5 inches in diameter is part of good forest management and fires. So that's my concern.
After you respond.
Good morning. My name's Steve Sherman. I'm the chief of the Forest Protection Bureau for the Division of Forests and Lands within DNCR. For the concerns, as far as doing rules for category 3 and 4 fires, 227L17 paragraph 2 states that no person, firm or corporation shall kindle or cause to kindle any fire without first obtaining a written permit. So that's where that authority comes from to do the rules for category 3 and 4. With the 5-inch diameter, that's a twofold. One of them is, as you stated, to limit the size, because anything over 5 inches, you run the risk, and we've seen it where it tends to smolder, it's harder to put out, it's not consumed completely during that time period where the individual's burning. So you do run a higher risk of having a wildfire or a fire that isn't extinguished properly, then extends later on or starts again later. The other part of it is to stay compliant with DES rules, ENVA 1001.3, where they define brush, and it defines all the limbs, everything, and then it states nothing greater than 5 inches in diameter. So we're just staying consistent with the air resource regulations that exist within New Hampshire. People can burn items greater than 5 inches if they go through the DES process for additional permitting. But as it stands for everyday backyard burning, that's why we stay with the 5 inches, is to be consistent with DES EMBA 1001.3.
Thank you. The issue of smoldering and it not going out, that's already covered by the other rules for the permitting process, correct?
It's covered in that if somebody has a fire that is not properly extinguished, they're responsible for whatever wildfire does start from that. But it's also our responsibility to look at prevention. And the preventative part of it is to have fires that are conducted in a way that prevents somebody from not extinguishing it properly or having it escape. I mean, we'd rather deal with it ahead of time and prevent that from occurring.
The rules do state that if it's not properly extinguished, that that's a violation of the fire permit as well, correct?
Correct.
Let me just have a follow-up, because the question really comes down to what do people do with brush greater than 5? I just cut a maple tree down in my yard that's probably a couple 100 years old and 3 feet across. What am I supposed to do with that if I want to dispose of that? And I want to put it in my burn ring in my backyard more than, far enough away from my house, and I want to just burn that to get rid of it. What you tell me I have to go to DES now to get a permit? I just can't go to my fire chief?
So you could split it down to a size that's under or no greater than 5 inches, because then it's going to burn cleaner. Once you get up over that 5 inches, things tend to smolder. They don't burn as clean overall. So you can either find a chipper or have it rot down naturally. Some municipalities now have grinders that they can take the wood and they'll grind it up. And there's outside services or private services that can be hired for larger diameter tree removal.
I'm puzzled about the process. I know that I have to go to my fire chief if I want to burn brush. Is he going to ask me if any of the pieces are larger than 5 inches in diameter?
Correct. They're going to ask what you're burning. Right on the permit, it says that you can't burn anything over 5 inches in diameter, and it has to be compliant with DES air regulations.
So that in order to burn brush that contains one piece that's greater than 5 inches at one point, I've got to go to DES and get an air permit? Is
And
that correct?
I've only seen that done on the industrial end. I haven't seen that done on the private landowner end. And the point is to discourage private landowners from burning larger diameter items because it doesn't burn cleanly, so it adds pollutants to the air, as well as the fact that it's not going to burn as clean and as complete. So you run the risk of having debris that's still smoldering and burning if it's not completely extinguished. It just makes that process harder.
I think that sounds like a process that's ripe for violation at the local level. If I just say I've got some limbs and brush that I want to burn, and my chief looks at the weather report and says, no problem. What, am I supposed to go out there with a tape measure for every single piece of wood?
So we don't sit there and follow up. I mean, there's the realistic part of it too. If somebody mistakenly has a 6-inch piece of wood in their fire, we're not chasing them down to give them a violation. The point is to educate the public through the process, the permit being the process. And the 5-inch diameter is very clearly written on the permit. They're told that. So overall, people are compliant, and we run into few problems with people burning larger debris. However, one example we just had right before we put the burn ban in place was an individual who was burning stumps. And nobody was around with the fire, but those had been smoldering for days because they don't get put out. The only way to put out something like that is to get in there with a hand tool and scrape it all down, water it down. It's a lengthy process, and your average homeowner is not going to do that.
But I'm not talking about, stumps or whatever. I'm talking about a collection of limbs and broken brush, and some of them happen to be more than 5 inches, particularly in spots. Have you calibrated everybody's eyeballs so they can say that this pile of brush doesn't have anything more than 5 inches?
No, not in the general public. We don't expect that that's going to be the case. Most of your trees that you're going to deal with as a homeowner, the only spot you're going to get into things that are really over 5 inches, for the most part, is your trunk and maybe some of your main leader branches. So we're talking about large trees. Most homeowners aren't cutting those down and then burning those in their brush pile. Most go to firewood of some type and they're split. So it's pretty rare. We don't come across folks who are trying to get a brush permit to burn trunks of trees. So the 5 inches, that's in the air resource rules. So we just stay consistent with that. And that way it's a twofold. We don't cause fires to continue to smolder, and we don't have air resource issues with wood that's not burning cleanly.
Representative Brody?
First of all, I recognize the importance of the rules. I also recognize that rules can be broken by anyone, any rules. There's nobody that's supervising rules from the homeowner, right? It's up to them. It's up to them to follow the regulations, and if they don't, it's on them. So if people want to do something that they're not allowed to do, you can't stop them from doing that. If there are consequences, they're responsible for that. I know that in my own town, when I first started getting fire permits, the firemen would come to my home to see what I was burning. They are very responsible for making sure that you have a fire permit. I think I'm the only one in my town that has a fire permit because I have a solo stove on my patio. That's how I follow the rules, because I know they're important. I don't want to have a fire near my home or near my woods that isn't going to be able to be contained. And if people don't have that responsibility, I don't think it's the prerogative of this commission or this committee to make people follow the rules. I mean, if they don't follow the rules, they don't follow them. But I think at the same time, the rules make sense. They make sense to me.
Representative Lynn?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding, if I'm understanding correctly, if you have, if you want to get a permit, or you have a stump or whatever that's larger than 5 inches, if I'm understanding what you're saying, the way that you can burn that is to just chop it first. So you split it into pieces so that each piece is less than 5 inches. Is that correct? And then you could burn without, as if you're not burning over 5 inches.
Correct. It doesn't matter what the original product was, as long as it's like splitting wood for a campfire. As long as it's under that 5 inches diameter, you're good to go.
Can I have one follow-up? So just one other question. I mean, what you say seems to me to make sense. The larger thing, it seems to me to make sense. But I'm just wondering. I mean, is there actually some? Are you basing this? Have there been some studies done, or is there scientific evidence that says 5 inches is kind of the appropriate cutoff point?
DES had the research when they put EMBA 1001.3 in place. They have the research on dioxins and wood that's not clean, releasing contaminants into the air. And that's when they came up with the 5 inches.
Thank you.
So my greatest concern here is not every property owner just has a normal suburban lot. We have individuals who are basically managing forest lands, sometimes in a planned forest plan, sometimes one that hasn't been filed but is based off the ANSI, based off of other things in order to deal with dead trees. It's also can be a misdemeanor for a violation of this. So when we have landowners who are trying to manage a neglected woodland, when they're trying to do that and bring this out and dispose of it in a way that doesn't increase the fire risk to the surrounding communities, where the amount of wood, the quantity of wood, on our property, we have about 90 acres. They literally were pickup sticks of pine trees in the woods because the bittersweet had killed so many. We have tons that are split at the top that need to come down before they take people down. Weeks of chipping, weeks of splitting, but still the accumulating dead wood that's completely dry is still a problem. So you're stating that the only process for disposing of this that doesn't cost thousands of dollars is to go to the DES in order to get that? Or is it possible to change this rule so that it's not a misdemeanor for people to responsibly deal with that? Because all of these other problems that you're saying about not extinguishing it are already covered by the rules.
So we deal a lot with the timber industry. That's the other side of what we do. So we work with foresters, with loggers. So I'm very familiar with land clearing, with forest practices, and burning debris is not efficient. When you're dealing with forestry and maintaining a woodlot, burning the debris is not the efficient way to do it. Chipping is the efficient way for that, and the chips can also be used as a product when you get into that larger diameter, over 5 inches. Actually, they can go lower than that. They're chipping that. It's a forest product in and of itself. So that's where, I don't see a conflict there. And, with DES and a homeowner, as I stated before, that's more of an industrial thing that DES is going to deal with, anything larger. So I can't speak completely to what they would allow or what they would not allow for burning.
Okay, well, I'll just state that it's not only commercial people who are dealing with land. It sounds like we're at an impasse, so I'll be voting against these rules because I do not believe that it is appropriate to divide landowners only into industrial or private. I recognize where you stand. We can continue the conversation, but I can't vote to make it a misdemeanor for people to burn over a 5-inch diameter wood.
If I could jump in real quick, I was just going to let the committee know that 227 L17, let me see here. 7 is where it requires a misdemeanor for a natural person for a violation.
So I'm just going to make some, in reading the statute, there's no specific diameter posed anywhere that I can find as I'm going through the 227 statutes. The only thing it says is large and small, period, that I can find anywhere. It talks about camp cook fires have to be small, but other has a definition of large. But the way I read that, it says large amount of material, not large material. And so I'm concerned about exceeding statutory authority by setting these diameters, that I think you can set the parameter of size and distance, right? It talks in here, you talk about some of that. The permit, they have to be 32 inches for a 1, 48 inches for a 2, and the size of the material, of the amount, that's the size of it, and which limits the amount. But I don't see any statutory authority anywhere that says that you get to say, other than you can't burn, hazardous waste, that you can set size requirements. I'm trying to figure out where that is, other than I can see. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, no, I haven't looked at the statute for DES, so I can't say whether or not it's in there or not. But the ENVA 1001.03A, I can read that definition for you. That's the DES rule for the open burning, prevention, abatement, and control of open source air pollution. It defines brush there. It says brush means treetops, limbs, saplings, and tree cuttings, including attached leaves that are 5 inches in diameter or less. Like I said, I don't know whether or not that diameter is in, DES's air statute or not. I did not see that in the statute for these rules, and it does just say small. You're right, it doesn't give a diameter.
And the only reference I saw was, again, it was about the amount, not the what the product is, or for lack of a better phrase.
Sorry, I do have one suggestion. So the normal process is the category 1, 2, and 3 fires. The category 4 fire involved a lot more involvement. So I would ask that just on page 19 of the rules, 20 of the packet, that in that A4, you change it from reading, the material to be burned is clean, untreated wood or brush, no greater than 5 inches in diameter, and meets applicable air resources regulations. Just to strike the no greater than 5 inches in diameter in that category 4, because that category 4, I believe already has that flexibility for that discussion between the forest ranger and forest fire warden with the person seeking the permit.
Authority to begin with to set a size standard? Are we talking about the same thing? They're relying on the same law that just says small or large, and they're making a determination.
I don't know where the 5 diameter comes from with DES statute. I can, take a quick look here at their index and try to see if maybe they have, the statutory authority in there. But, yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head.
So I'll note this rule doesn't have a deadline until next month.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, Mr. Chair. I think there might be time to get a little more of the backstory through the DES angle if we were willing to put this off until next month.
We would still need a waiver. The meeting is 2 days after the deadline.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion that we grant a waiver, postpone for 1 month, and give staff time to take a look at the back end of that. Given their justification as a DES rule, take a look at the DES rule, make sure the DES rule has authority within statute to set that. And then we can come back next month and have this discussion all over again.
I'll second that. And may I also say that if the suggestion that Representative Leon made on the category for fire is allowed, that be considered. They'll have time to think about that. Okay.
And it doesn't apply right now because we're under a burn ban, so nobody's burning anything. So, all those in favor of waiver and postponement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Guys up. See you next month.
Yeah.
And again, if you find you can always submit a conditional if you find there's a change that is acceptable to you to deal with this, what we've been talking about. Thanks. Next up, Fish and Game, Rule 173.
Okay, so these rules are on fishing tournaments and derbies. The item was on consent, but the agency filed a conditional approval request that created an issue with the notice, in that the rules now implement a 5-day deadline for payments for fishing tournament permits, which wasn't included in the notice. So for background, the agency is going to an online system for the submission of applications for fishing tournament permits. Those permits are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. So if someone fails to submit the payment, the agency wants to be able to issue it to the next person in line. The problem is, though, that the public hasn't really been put on notice about this 5-day requirement, like I said, because it wasn't in the notice. So the notice is very specific as to what the changes are. It does state that the department is going to an online application system, but it doesn't mention the 5-day payment deadline. That was inserted into the conditional approval, so that was the first time that that has made an appearance. But anyway, that was the only comment that we have on this rule set.
Coming from the agency.
Good morning. I'm Marty Mobley. I'm the legal coordinator for Fish and Game, and today with me is John McGee. He is our program supervisor for our Inland Fisheries Division. And John, you want to explain why we're going to the 5-day?
Sure. Good morning. We're trying to implement a fully online system, so that's going to, we think, help our constituents do it, just be easier for them for the actual application process. In addition to that, as part of that, we're also implementing, or would like to implement, an online payment system. Again, we're trying to make it easier for everybody. Right now, there's the only way that people really pay is by a paper check, and they have to mail it in to us. Sometimes people walk it in, and so we're trying to make sure that things are easier for them with that online system. Right now, we have a 30-day period, so they have to send in that paper check by 30 days. That includes, the U.S. Postal Service if it takes a couple days to get there. And the problem is, or the reason we have that right now is because if someone doesn't pay within a certain specified time, we don't want them to basically inadvertently, accidentally holding a spot, a specific lake and a specific date for their tournament, their fishing tournament. We don't want them to hold that one up in case someone else wants to get that date and that location. So going to online, we felt that 5 days was plenty of time and sufficient to make sure people can go ahead and pay. On the ground, when someone is actually doing this, paying online should take about 2 to 3 minutes, something like that. It'd actually take a lot less time than writing on a check and mailing it and doing all that work. So again, the focus really is to try to make sure it's easier for our constituents, while also ensuring that we don't have someone accidentally holding a space and a date for their fishing tournament, kind of holding that up, and when others might want to have that location and date.
I don't think anybody has an objection that you set a date, timeline. I think the problem is that it wasn't noticed in the original rule, public hearing filing, and therefore is outside of 541A because you introduced a topic and timeline in that was never discussed in a public hearing. So I think that's the problem.
Would it be reasonable to change the 5 days to 30 days to match the existing limit for non-payment? And just say, you can do it online or you can send in a check, because I'm sure if somebody chose to send in a check, you wouldn't refuse it.
Do I have permission to talk about it? You made a good point about the check. If someone sent in a check, it would feel very weird to me to try to mail that back to them in this moment. And I'm just thinking, since you asked that question, I'm thinking right now, there may be some people who still want to send in a check, and there might be a time period where maybe we want to slowly bring people into the online system. So I think there's value in going that route. The only concern I have with the 30 days is that someone might accidentally be holding up a location and date for a fishing tournament. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't sound like some terrible thing to me. My preference myself is to have a 5 day, a shorter window to get people to go ahead and pay and get it done.
Sure, that's desirable, but you're waiting up to 30 days right now, so it's not insurmountable.
One second. So what would, if we were to postpone this and give them a chance to just put some sort of notice out to the public saying, hey, by the way, this rule has a timeline in it, would they have time to be able to come back in November if we postponed it and allowed them to do that?
I think so, yeah.
Would
That
that be
you could put-
acceptable? Yeah, that would deal, we have an issue with 541A, so I need to fix that because I'm not going to approve a rule that violated 541A, right, in the notice requirements. And we have a topic that was not discovered.
I think we can do a special notice to inform the public of the change in the rule text. And if we can get that process pretty fast, then yeah, we could do that for November.
Representative McGuire.
If the limit, if the 30-day limit for payment is already in their rule, then changing the online deadline to 30 days also is not a change.
Well, so I guess my argument would be that if they have both a paper and an online process that are, number one, the online process is new, so they need new rules to deal with that. And so this is a new rule with a timeline that wasn't noticed when they noticed the new rule. This isn't, so that's the reason why I think we still need to have even if it is the same as the paper process, it still needs to be noticed that the online process has a timeline that wasn't mentioned in the original notice requirements to the public. So, but I'll make a motion that we postpone this item until November 24th to give the agency time to correct the deficiency with the 541A rule.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and it's postponed till next month. Thank you, Marty, for being open to that. That's the last item on the regular calendar. Next up is other business interim rule form changes, and I'll turn it over to Doug, who will explain what's going on.
So this is really just a quality of life sort of change. When agencies file interim rules, they have to file two separate forms.
You and I have.
We've had, they have to file the interim rule notice and they have to file the cover sheet. There's something like 11 questions and 8 of them overlap. So we're asking permission to combine the 2 forms. We meet the statutory requirements if we do this, but instead of filling out 2 forms, you file and submit one. It's not a major issue, but it is a small quality of life kind of thing. It just makes it easier to keep track of.
Second.
Thank you.
I assume I will take over the chair. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Oh, sorry.
Can we cancel the continued meeting as well?
Yes, and we should cancel the continuing meeting as we have no ongoing business. And if, is there anything else? Otherwise, I'll adjourn. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.